let's get to Jeff Paterson right away. Jeff, what's the best question you've ever heard asked in a scrum? In all your years, best question you've ever heard asked in a scrum. I can tell you the worst from me. I can tell you my worst while you think about that. Do you want to hear my worst?
Yeah, I need a little time here to think of this one.
Think about it. So the worst question I've ever asked is, it was a post-game press conference. It wasn't a scrum per se, but it was still that setting. And I asked a question. I don't even know what the question was, but I had a brain fart, and Talkett had, you know how Talkett always calls Adam Foote Footy, right? He always calls him Footy. He had said that in the answer previous, so in my head I was going to say Adam, and what came out was Footy. I called Adam Foote by his nickname, and I paused, and it was just the most awkward, I still cringe thinking about that, but that was the worst question I've ever asked, I think ever been asked at Rogers Arena, right there.
I think when you do the job as long as I have, and ask as many questions as I have, you're going to ask some bad ones. I will cop to asking some bad ones, phrasing them poorly. There are times where you know in your head exactly what you want to ask, and then your mouth just won't cooperate.
Exactly.
And you can feel it as you're trying to get the question out. You go this is not going to end well. And I think I've told the story before when I was out on the road. It was me and Botch in Minnesota, and I was trying to ask Brock Besser a question, and this was a young Brock Besser, something about scoring goals and making it look easy. When it isn't at this level. Ask Travis Green. It's not an easy league to score in. And the question it was after practice. It was just the three of us standing there, and Botch was sort of off to the side, and he could tell that this one was going off the rails in a hurry. And then he just started cackling. He was laughing at my ineptitude, which of course then prompted Brock to laugh at Botch. So Botch is laughing at me. Brock's laughing at Botch. I'm standing there just feeling like a fool. But sometimes you got to take the bullets. Look, there have been other people that have asked tough questions, and I just kind of, thank goodness that's not me and today, but I've had my moments. Trust me, I have had plenty of moments over the years where questions just don't roll off the tongue the way that you want them to.
I have a story to add to that. The one that stands out for me is, I've obviously asked bad questions. It's inevitable. Yeah. But the funniest story was actually when I didn't ask a question at the NHL draft in Nashville, because at the time the questions that I was going to ask had already been asked, so I didn't really have much to say. So at the end of the press conference, when the mics and cameras are off, Alvin chirped me and was like, "Oh, did you have a late night out on Broadway last night?" Basically just saying, "Are you awake? Are you you're just not asking any questions?" And so that was and the funny thing is, I didn't even get the joke in the beginning. That the joke was, I'm too tired to ask questions, but that was really funny.
Oh, that's great. Okay, see you, Jeff. Thanks for joining. No, Jeff. Let's break all this down. Canucks Islanders tonight. We were just talking about the power play. You asked, talking about it, this idea of just getting Lekkerimäki the chance to play in the bumper right away. Talkett using the words, he's trending in that direction of being a lethal threat in the bumper, like a Bo Horvat was in Vancouver for years.
Yeah, and the origin story there is that I just take my marching orders. Quads texted me this morning and was like, "Ask Talkett about the bumper." And I was like, all right, I know where my bread's buttered here. If I want to be on Convo, I better ask the question. So I did. Yeah, I think the surprising thing for me is, and again, I like the way that they sort of groomed Lekkerimäki here with the 2 days of practice before his debut. But on Monday at practice, he wasn't on that top unit. And so I was like everybody else when they got their first power play at the end of the first period and had the intermission, they come out to start the second. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, hey, Lekkerimäki's on the right side as they face off at center. And then sure enough, worked his way into the bumper. And we saw in that second period, the second power play, puck came to him. And you just envision that it won't take many of those chances before he puts one in the back of the net. So he's a shooter, shoot, let him do his thing. And really, when you look at the other component parts, you guys are talking about the way it still flows through JT, whichever side of the ice he's on. Connor Garland is there for entries and some puck retrieval work. He's not a threat to shoot. We know that. And I really like the work that Elias Pettersson's doing net front. And he was rewarded for it the other night with the tap-in the blue paint. But you go back to Anaheim. Quinn's shot basically hit him, but where was he standing? Right on the edge of the crease. Then against Edmonton, deflection as he got to the blue paint and stayed there. That is a skill, and I think it's an underrated skill in the NHL, getting to the front of the net, but staying in the front of the net. It's tough. You're going up against the biggest, baddest dudes on the other team whose job is to move you out of there. And so yeah, we still haven't seen these massive explosive point production nights for Paterson, but back-to-back 2-point nights is a step in the right direction. And part of that is his willingness to get to the net there, and good things are happening because the puck's following him. And so he just looks so much more invested. Power play suddenly has scored 4 straight games, and maybe they'll make it 5 in a row. And who knows, maybe as an homage to Bo Horvat on the other side, Jonathan Lecker-Mackey will pot his first NHL goal tonight.
For Lecker-Mackey, do you think this is a legit top 6 audition where if he has success, he can potentially stay with the team for the rest of the season? Or is it more, let's just give this kid a few games of NHL experience, maybe a temporary band-aid solution for Brock, so that he has a taste before ultimately getting sent down and continuing to develop in Abbotsford?
I hope he's here to stay. I hope his play warrants that he's here to stay, but I have a hunch that he hasn't finished with the American Hockey League just yet. The way that they're shuttling players back and forth, the waiver exemption, all that kind of stuff. I think if they can get fully healthy, and that's obviously an issue, a big step with Dakota Joshua getting there tonight, and just to see Brock Besser in the hallway today, just as an aside here to your question, I tweeted out the fact that Brock and Bo Horvat were having a chat just outside the Islanders locker room, and I tweeted Besser and Horvat, in sweats. And the number of people that are freaking out that I included the fact that these guys were wearing sweats. What kind of sweats? What kind of shoes? The point was, I was trying to paint a picture that Brock Besser in workout gear at some level is encouraging. I don't know if he had a workout or he was going to work out, but the very fact that he looked like he was active today, it's the first time I've seen him around the rink, and it's been a week since last Thursday. So people are all looking for updates. We know we're not going to get one from the hockey club, so we're kind of left to piece all the breadcrumbs we can. That's all that was. I'm not here to do fashion reviews. I'm not going to tell you what guys are wearing. In every interview that I do, I didn't get a chance to break up their conversation. They looked like they were deep in thought. But just the mere fact that Brock Besser in workout wear around the rink, I think, is at some very base level an encouraging sign as we all await his return to the lineup.
No doubt. It's on the path to recovery, right? You have to cross that barrier of, are you able to work out? How much can you ramp it up? And then, of course, you return to the ice. So that's a good update, Jeff. I don't blame you for not interrupting and saying, Brock, who are you wearing today? Yeah,
Quads
I don't blame
harm,
you for that.
in matching black tees. Yes. We're back to that again.
Quads and Harmon stun in matching black tees. Jeff, another story from the rink today, really a story that we've just been following for a while now, is Nils Hoglander. His diminishing ice time, season low, 9:23, I believe it was, on the ice time last game. Rick Tocchet said he had a conversation with Nils Hoglander today. Nils Hoglander apologizing to the head coach. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, I'd love to have been a fly on the ice. I don't know if the conversation took place on the ice. We know Tocchet likes to have his chats with guys out there on the ice, or if it happened beforehand. But you guys both know, like, Hoglander's such a quiet guy. Tocchet's big and loud. Like, I can't imagine, like, Nils going up to the coach and saying, like, I'm playing bad. What? I'm playing bad. I can't hear you. Speak up. I suck right now. Can you hear that? Yeah, look, Hoglander took some ownership of it. It's been 9 games without a goal. He's been demoted to the 4th line. For me, guys, like, sort of the unwritten part of the story the other night wasn't just 9 minutes and 23 seconds, sub 10 minutes for the first time this season. One shift in the final 12 minutes. Brandstrom scores 6 minutes into the third. It's a 2-goal lead. They're not at least nursing a 1-goal lead at that point. Like, they had a little bit of cushion. They had some flexibility, and yet Tocchet still elected to sit essentially that entire third line, but Hoglander was the guy that was sort of in the crosshairs. So to hear Hoglander go to the coach, like, again, I think there's some credit to him for taking responsibility, recognizing that he's not playing that well. And then in the same vein, Tocchet said, like, I got to coach him better. I need to get him out there more. He hopes that having Dakota Joshua back tonight allows him to play the 4th line a little bit more, even if it is Joshua's season debut. The other night it was Baines on that 4th line, and they weren't going. They were out there for the Calgary goal, and so there were some factors at play. But Tocchet wants to try to get them up and manage their minutes a little bit better. For Hoglander, though, you'd like him to have more ice time, but he showed last year that, like, he can be productive and be a difference maker in managed minutes. And so I think for him, he's got to be in that mindset. If I'm only getting 9, I got to give them the best 9 minutes I've got here, and I have shown that I can score and help this hockey club from a 4th line role, and then kind of work from there. The one area that talks about getting more minutes. He's not on the power play. And that's part of this story as well, that he has lost all of his power play duties right now, where they're going with Kiefer Sherwood, not a noted power play guy. So that would be one way that you could get him a few more minutes. You'd think that if you wanted to get him out there on power play too. Whatever the case, kind of feels like Nils Hoglander has to be rebuilt here for a guy that scored 24 goals. But the coach, I was happy to hear the coach did not sound like a guy that's ready to give up on Hoglander at all. Just kind of digging in here and saying, I got to coach him better, and we'll see what he can do with that player starting tonight.
J-Pat, what do you think Horvat's legacy is ultimately going to be, and especially now that there's more distance between the trade and the exit to where we are today? Where do you think Canucks fans are at with Bo Horvat?
Yeah, I think it's still a bit of a mixed bag. I thought it was interesting. Ryan Kessler, the redemption tour continued the other night and then making the media rounds. And, I saw a lot of mixed reaction there that, like, a lot of people were like, yeah, let him retire a Canuck for a day. And then there were a lot like, no, sorry, like that wound hasn't healed yet. I don't think there's wounds here with Bo Horvat. I can't speak for the fan base harm. All I know is that, like, dealing with Bo Horvat on a daily basis as I did, he was in a tough spot. He was the captain of just an absolutely brutal era of Vancouver Canucks hockey through no fault of his own. They put the C on him, and I think it was the right call. But he was asked to answer for a lot of crappy on-ice hockey, a lot of off-ice things that really weren't under his purview, and yet he was forced to answer, for this hockey club. He was put in tough situations, tried his best to do that. He was a good dude. Like, I know other people were like, oh, he didn't fight enough. He didn't stick up for teammates and all that. Like, and that's fine. Everybody can have their view. Could he have been more physical? Could he, if he had an edge, would that have helped his game? Yeah, maybe a little bit. But I just found him to be an honest, decent guy on the ice, off the ice, tried hard, performed well for the Vancouver Canucks, but ultimately not enough money to go around. The team made its decision. They elected to commit to JT, and that's looked pretty good on the organization now. And Bo, he had his options as a free agent and elected to take the money and stick it out there in Long Island, and we'll see how that plays out for him ultimately. But this is not a particularly good New York Islanders team. 6 wins in 16 games. They don't score much. Their special teams are terrible. This is a winnable game. Very winnable game for the Vancouver Canucks to try to build off the other night. And I would imagine, like, Bo's been here and done that now. He's had the return game, the Jumbotron and everything else. This is a business trip. This is really just another game for him. So I don't imagine that we'll see any sort of interplay with the fan base. I don't think they're going to put him up on the Jumbotron for any particular reason. He's probably motivated just because he's coming back here and wants to stick it to his old team. But I kind of feel like that's, everybody has sort of turned the page, right? From Bo's time here, there's been a little distance now, and he can be a good player for the Islanders and should be a good player for the Islanders given what they're paying him. But there's a lot of, that team needs a lot of help, and obviously no Matt Barzal. Again, when I go back to gettable games for the Canucks, this one just feels like one that's sort of sitting there on a tee for them.
Love it. Good stuff, Jeff. Final question for me. When do the Winnipeg Jets suffer their second loss? They're facing the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight.
The Canucks don't see them till January, I think, right?
Yep.
I think they're going to have one loss until then. I just marvel. Like, they're good. I get that. And motivated after what happened to them in the playoffs. I didn't see this. Nobody can sit there and say that they saw the trajectory that they are on. But how impressive is that to go into Madison Square and just, like, kick the door down and boot the Rangers in the teeth the other night? Like, those are the kind of wins that get your attention. And we all remember the Canucks doing that last January, and we're like, wow, like, that's a statement victory. So pretty impressive stuff. If you just look at the Winnipeg Jets, like, individual scoring page, it's incredible how many guys in double digits already, and guys like, how's this guy up to like 13 and 14 points, but they're scoring nightly, obviously with Hellebuck in there. They don't give up much. And hat off to them. They've been impressive, but they will lose again. That's just life in pro sports. So, better not to peak too soon, as they say. And I guess there is a little bit of a risk of that when you're doing the things that they're doing here in the month of November. It's a long season, and ultimately they're going to be judged on playoff success or failure just because that core group, has been together a while. They've had lots of regular season successes, but haven't really been able to get over the hump in the playoffs. So yeah, let's see what happens. But when are they going to get their second? I don't know.
Don't say tonight. Don't say tonight. It's my bet 365 bet of the day later
not
in the
tonight
show.
at all.
Not
No.
tonight.
No.
Attaboy.
No.
Awesome, Jeff. Thanks so much for doing this. We appreciate it, and we will chat with you soon.
Always fun, guys. Thanks.